What's up, everybody? It's me, Joe Pisapia, and if there's one thing that fantasy football players absolutely hate, it's overvalued players. If it's one thing that they love, it's stadium chants in 4 syllables. So here are 12 overvalued players that I'm looking at right now that you should really think twice about drafting. And before you go ahead and listen to these players and watch this video, make sure you like it and make sure you subscribe to Fantasy Pros on YouTube. So let's take a look at the list and let's start with number 12. Number 12 on the list of overvalued players, DIONTAE Johnson. Now, DIONTAE Johnson has been a very steady wide receiver for many years now in the fantasy football world. He no longer has Ben Roethlisberger throwing him the football. That could get a little dicey. Right now, he's at wide receiver 13, and look, there is no indication that the quarterback play is going to get any better. So everybody taking all the shots at Ben Roethlisberger because he's old, he couldn't throw the football anymore. Well, guess what? We don't know if Mitchell Trubisky or Kenny Pickett's going to be an improvement on that. And at wide receiver 13, it's a little bit of a hefty investment to find out. So I'm out. He's a little overvalued. Number 11 on this list is ALVIN Kamara, RB10. Yes, it's a big name, but hear me out before you go crazy. Last year, I was talking about Ezekiel Elliott and having 5 years on those tires, and maybe, just maybe, that 6th year something we should be a little concerned with. And guess what? Joey P turned out to be right. And if you look at what happened last year with ALVIN Kamara, over his 13 games played, he went from 80-plus receptions for the first 4 seasons to 47. He, of course, did increase his touches in terms of attempts, went to 240. That's not really his bread and butter. This is not Derrick Henry running the football here. And we're talking about no more Drew Brees, no more Sean Payton. We don't know what the Saints offense is really going to look like. Do you want to invest at RB10 in ALVIN Kamara? I think it's a little dicey. I think I would rather take wide receivers in that same ADP. I think Kamara is still being a little bit overvalued. And most of the time, these running backs have a window, and ALVIN Kamara's window might get shut faster than you might think. Next here on our list is number 10, and it's Dawson Knox. Dawson Knox lived off touchdowns last year, 9 of them, and he finished as tight end number 7 overall in half PPR. The trouble is, I don't know if those touchdowns are going to come back necessarily for Dawson Knox. So, if you're looking at the number of targets he got last year, which was 71 over 15 games, I'd much rather have guys like Dalton Schultz. I would even take a look at some of the later tight ends after Dawson Knox, take a shot on 2 of those guys. I just don't think you can go chasing waterfalls or Dawson Knox touchdowns. I'm sorry, you just can't do both or either right now. So I'm going to be out on Dawson Knox. I think he's a little bit overvalued heading into the season based on what he did last year. And this year, there's some very exciting players in Buffalo, including James Cook and a Gabriel Davis who's untethered, who might take a big step forward. And I think that means bad news for Dawson Knox. Next on the list, number 9, DJ Moore. He's incredibly consistent, and at wide receiver 16, I respect that. I still think it's overvalued, though, because there's no upside. If you want 1,100 yards and 4 touchdowns, my goodness, he is your man. But why is he ranked at wide receiver 16 right now when he's finished 38th, 18th, 22nd, and 20th? He's never come close to wide receiver 16. It's not like the quarterback situation is markedly better all of a sudden in Carolina. So DJ Moore is overvalued, consistent, yes, but a little overvalued. Next on the list is Kyler Murray. So Kyler Murray at number 8 here is QB5 on the board. If I want a rushing quarterback, honestly, I'm going to take Lamar Jackson. I'm going to take Jalen Hurts. Kyler Murray saw his yards per carry go way down. You saw him deal with some injuries, miss some games last year. In 2020, a lineman fell on him, and for 4 weeks, he couldn't throw the football more than 10 yards. So you have to understand you're investing in the frame of Kyler Murray that's a little bit smaller, and you have to understand that Kyler Murray is a bigger injury risk than you realize. And I think he's a little overvalued. Not to mention his best offensive weapon there in the air game is DeAndre Hopkins, who's not going to be there for the first 6 games. That's almost half of your fantasy season. I'm sorry, he's overvalued. Enough said. Number 7 on the list, David Montgomery. Consensus RB16, David Montgomery. Missed some time last year, and Khalil Herbert looked pretty good. Now, RB16 is reasonable value, but I think he's being a little bit overvalued in the sense that the Bears aren't going to be a great offense. They're going to have a quarterback that can run the football himself. And let's not forget, Herbert looked pretty good. There's every reason to believe he's going to get a few carries a game. That's going to eat into David Montgomery's timeshare a little bit. So for me, David Montgomery, I believe once again, this is a guy that's a little overvalued. Next on the list here is number 6, Ezekiel Elliott. Oh, we spoke of him earlier. That's right. He's RB18 on the list right now, but that's just in consensus. In drafts, I've seen him go as early as 14, 13, people still are in love with the name brand value, and with the reports that he's healthy, he's ready to go, that's fine. But just because you're healthy and ready to go doesn't make you the same player you were 5 years ago. And it's something we have to understand about Ezekiel Elliott. Name brand value doesn't necessarily equal fantasy production. Yes, there's sometimes exceptions to the rule. Yes, there's sometimes guys like Adrian Peterson who play forever. But Ezekiel Elliott doesn't look like he's going to be that guy. And personally, I think he's still overvalued. There's some running backs you can take in that same range. Guys like Travis Etienne, who I think have far more upside, especially in PPR formats. Next on the list is number 5, Chris Godwin, consensus wide receiver 24. Now, there's a chance this guy starts on the pup and misses time. That's a problem for me. Russell Gage is going at wide receiver 45. Why don't I just take Russell Gage instead of taking Chris Godwin at 24? I think Godwin's being overvalued. Yes, the Bucs are a wonderful offense. And yes, Chris Godwin is a wonderful talent. But at the same time, can we realize what kind of investment we have to make at wide receiver 24? The names around there all have upside, some even which to finish as a wide receiver 1. With Chris Godwin missing games at the beginning potentially, and we don't know how healthy he is, we don't know if there's going to be any setbacks, I think it's a little bit of blind faith, and I don't want to be walking into any doors come draft day. So, Chris Godwin, overvalued this year. Number 4 on the list, DK Metcalf, wide receiver 17. I got 2 words for you. Drew Lock. Okay, that's it. That's what I've got. Now, look, maybe Drew Lock just needed to get out of Denver. That's fair. We've seen that happen before where a player goes somewhere else and all of a sudden he looks like a different person. But I'm not buying this one. Sorry, I'm just not looking there. You gave him Cortland Sutton, you gave Drew Lock guys like Jerry Jeudy, Tim Patrick, and it was lackluster at best in that offense in Denver. As much of a highlight reel as DK Metcalf is, you have to be realistic. There might be a few big games, but at wide receiver 17, you're really looking for a guy you can very much rely on. And I just don't know if Drew Lock and the way they want to attack the run game in Seattle is going to be enough for him to finish as wide receiver 17. So for me, I think he's slightly overvalued based on the physique, based on the fun, based on the highlight reel potential. I want fantasy points. Highlights are fun. Give me the points. Give me the W's. Number 3, Tyreek Hill, wide receiver 9. Some of the deeper metrics last year on Tyreek Hill suggested that he's losing a little bit of a step here and there. He also only finished as a wide receiver 1 half the time last year. Half! That was with Patrick Mahomes. Now he's got Tua Tagovailoa. And look, Tua's a decent quarterback, and there's every reason to believe he could make some strides in that development this year and keep Tyreek Hill relevant. But there's a difference between relevant and a wide receiver 2 and wide receiver 9 being in the top 10. There's a lot of reasons to think that when a player as fast as Tyreek Hill loses a step or so, all of a sudden, that's the beginning of the end for his talent in terms of returning fantasy value. So at wide receiver 9, with the unknowns of the offense, and of course on top of that, the unknowns at quarterback, a new head coach, a new situation, a new surrounding, there's a lot of question marks, far few enough answers for me. No Patrick Mahomes, no Joey P for Tyreek Hill. Wide receiver 9, he's overvalued. Next on their list, number 2, TJ Hockenson, tight end 6. Now, TJ Hockenson sure does get off to good starts, doesn't he? Every year he has a splash game in week 1 or week 2, and it's great. But let's think a little deeper here. DeAndre Swift caught a ton of balls last year. They just drafted Jameson Williams, who I think is the best wide receiver talent in the draft class. They also brought in DJ Chark. Oh, wait. And also on top of that, they had a guy named Amon-Ra St. Brown, who was about the most consistent wide receiver I'd ever seen over an 8-game stretch at the end of last season. And now we're supposed to be TJ Hockenson is tight end 6? I'm sorry. I would just rather take that draft capital, spend it on more running backs, spend it on a QB of solid note, spend it on a wide receiver, than spend it on a tight end like Hockenson, who has had a lot of injury history issues, and a guy, frankly, who might be looking on the outside in terms of target share. And the number 1 player who's overvalued, Christian McCaffrey, RB2, number 2 overall. Come at me, bro. Come at me, gals. Come on, let's go. I know everybody loves Christian McCaffrey. I love Christian McCaffrey. He's fun. He's incredibly talented. He put up 2 of the greatest fantasy football seasons in the history of the industry. He's also put up 2 of the worst because he hasn't been playing because he's been hurt for 2 straight years. We don't give everybody a pass, but somehow we keep giving Christian McCaffrey passes. I'm not saying he's not a first-round pick. I'm not saying he can't go back to being the guy that he was. I'm just saying, if you give me the entire board, I think I'd rather take something a little safer than Christian McCaffrey. Best ball's one thing, If I'm talking season long, I want somebody who's out there every single week. And let's not forget, we were all concerned for years. All we heard was the narrative of Christian McCaffrey's too small for that kind of workload. He's gonna fade out in the NFL too quick. And then it happened, and now we all seem to say, oh, it doesn't matter. It matters to me. It matters to me big time. So Christian McCaffrey, another one here. RB2 overall, a little rich for my blood. I'm telling you, you can still take him as a first-round talent, but I think he's a little overvalued. So those are my top 12 overvalued players. If you've got something to say about it, go ahead, say something in the YouTube comments. Give me your overvalued players, or tell me why I'm wrong about mine, or maybe why I'm right. It's okay to say something nice. It really is. It goes a long way. But no matter what, thanks for watching the video. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to Fantasy Pros YouTube channel, and click that little bell for notifications so you know a piece of content drops here. You'll be notified of it immediately so you can watch it and dominate all your fantasy leagues. And don't forget about FantasyPros.com, where all the great content lives. That'll do it for me, Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids.
Thanks for tuning in to the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel. Don't forget to check out our featured videos. And while you're at it, make sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Fantasy Pros, so you can get the latest news and updates to give you the edge you need in your fantasy league.